All right, welcome to our Jud B end of session, hopefully meeting. Yeah, Senator Simmons, I think you had provided some information to the committee. Do you want to share on I think it's Mr. Tony Qualls, which is table subject to call. So I'll call that one off the table and I'll recognize Senator Simmons. He's done a little research since our last meeting.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And members of the committee as it relates to Tony Qualls of Humphreys County. This goes to Senator Sparks' point and also Mr. Chairman, what I told you, Senator Dennis DeBar and I, we talked about as we were considering some of these about how important it is going forward, Mr. Chairman, that we have as much information as possible. We think that the indictment and the sentencing orders are important because they will basically be the formal start of any charge in Mississippi, and then the sentencing order will basically dispose of that matter. And of course, a lot of the information that we see in our packet is from MDOC as it relates to if they actually had probation, and then we'll see a discharge certificate, which ends the probation, and you don't get a discharge certificate, as many of the criminal defense lawyers and former prosecutors on this committee know. You don't get a discharge certificate unless the person has met all the terms and conditions of the sentence. So on Tony Qualls, just like in many in the pack, we had a discharge certificate from MDOC. And from MDOC, that discharge certificate showed that he actually was discharged for a burglary of a dwelling, which is a violent offense under 9732 of our code. But based upon the indictment and the sentencing order from Humphreys County, it clearly shows that the charge for Mr. Tony Qualls was commercial burglary, which is not a violent crime. And so with that being said, I'll yield to any questions. And if there are no questions, I'd like to make a motion at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman.
Some information I'm passing around the table that you had received last meeting. So that gets passed around. People may want to take a look at that. I appreciate you doing all your homework so fast for us. All right, any questions on this particular House Bill number 4120? Questions? If not, Senator Simmons for motion.
Satisfaction do pass, Mr. Chairman.
Pass. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it.
And Mr. Chairman, may I just make a general comment before we consider the rest of them? Senator Hill had a valid question regarding the NCIC. I know there were some earlier in this year that was considered by this committee, even from Senator McCunn, that had some completely inaccurate information on the NCIC. And so as we consider the rest of them, even the ones on the motion to reconsider calendar, I would just like for you, Mr. Chairman, first to thank you for your leadership for bringing these forward and for the committee for their deliberation on these. But I would just like to say that this is a presidential election. Many of these are old. People have lost their right to vote for decades, and it would be nothing more dignifying for the ones that we're going to consider going forward for them to have an opportunity to vote after a long time in a presidential election. So as we consider these, and especially where we have concerns about the NCIC that are old, I would like to err, even if there's a question on them for the committee's consideration, err on the side of allowing these individuals to get their right to vote in this upcoming presidential election, as opposed to on the side of let's wait a year just because we don't have the right information on the NCIC. Thank you.
Your comment, appreciate that. All right, I think we have a couple of our House colleagues that joined us this morning. We'll go up to House Bill number 4053. This is Mr. Omar Eugene McGee of Covington County, and the House member from Covington County, Chairman Noah Sanford, is kind enough to join us this morning. Noah, if you want to just grab a seat and use the microphone right up here, you can tell us a little bit about Mr. Omar Eugene McGee, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate y'all allowing me to come speak on this. So, Mr. McGee is a constituent of mine and Chairman Fillingane as well, and he was convicted in 1978 of grand larceny, so almost 50 years ago. This information supplied from MDOC is incorrect in one aspect. It has that he was convicted again in December of 1978. That's not correct. He was, he had violated probation at that time and that was revoked for non-payment of restitution. So that's what that was. There was not a second conviction of grand larceny in 1978. There was just one in May of 1978. He did have a second disenfranchising crime of burglary in 1985. So 40 years ago, was sentenced to that. Those are the only disenfranchising crimes he's had. And they did have a drug crime in 1999. So 25 years ago. But he was forthcoming with me when I met with him, and that's been almost a year ago. I was not able to reach him last night when I found out about this meeting to try to get information any more than what I knew, but he was forthcoming with me a year ago that he had a drug addiction problem at the time, and that was what brought those about. So if there's any other information I can provide, I'll be happy to.
You've met personally with Mr.
Yes, and he is, not that this is relevant probably, but he's totally blind now. That's one reason it's easy to remember. He tried to shake his hand and he did not reciprocate, and I realized he was blind, but very nice man, and he's probably in his 70s now, I would say.
All right, any questions for Representative Sanford? Senator Simmons?
Satisfaction do pass, Mr. Chairman.
The questions, we good there, Senator Sparks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Sanford. Was Mr. McGee ultimately sentenced as habitual the third time?
Was he sentenced as habitual?
Yes, sir.
I believe so.
Okay, I was just looking at his time sheet, the third one, and it appeared to state that he was sentenced habitual, or I didn't understand exactly what that meant when it says computation details 7/29/05.
First time I've seen the MDOC sheet in a while, but
And the only other question I would have is the burglary crime. If it's burglary of a vehicle or commercial building, that is nonviolent. But the general description of burglary, if it's burglary of a dwelling, it is violent. I just know that generally, and I think that may be why this thing went the way it went yesterday, as we were uncertain on that burglary crime. Do you have any idea the nature of that burglary?
I do not. If he told me, like I say, it's a year ago, I tried to reach him last night to get him more information, and again this morning, and couldn't reach him. I don't know if it's the wrong phone number now or what, but I don't know the circumstances, but I know he did tell me that he had a drug addiction, and which I feel like it's probably a lot of people's story.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment, if you don't mind. Certainly going forward, if we can impress upon MDOC the importance of accurate documentation in the highest form, because it would be very unfortunate if someone is denied their right to be restored because of errors or lack of information that they're. So I mean, don't know how, but if that's something that we could communicate to them and stress upon them the importance of it.
I totally agree. And since the meeting yesterday, I've had some conversations with Senators Sparks and DeBar and Wiggins and Simmons and a few others. I think it might be a great idea if we continue down this pathway of doing the separate bills this way, which I mean, there's pending litigation in the Fifth Circuit. So, at any minute we could get a ruling and that could change the whole ballgame. But if we don't, or, if it's still pending litigation still, these things take a while to percolate all the way through the system. I think it's a good idea to maybe make a checklist so that individual members of House and Senate kind of know what they need, because sometimes, we just don't know, because we don't handle these maybe that often individually, what would be helpful to the committee to vet these bills. So I'm committed to working with you all to try to create maybe a checklist that would be helpful, not required, but certainly would be helpful to getting all the information together for the committees to consider. But any other questions on this particular one? If not, Senator Simmons, you're recognized. For motion,
Titus Fisher, new pass, Mr. Chairman.
House Fisher do pass. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sanford, or Representative Sanford, I'm sorry. All right, I see a couple of other House members, and I apologize for not knowing everyone as well as I ought to. If another House member, would you mind coming to the table, and you can direct us to which bill or bills? There's a packet, I think, right there. You can direct us to, and we'd be glad to look at whichever ones you're here to look at.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Is this on? Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to my Senate colleagues. I have two suffrage requests on the list this morning. The first one is House Bill 4086 for Joseph Greer of Hinds County. Mr. Greer is in his late 60s. He was convicted of forgery, served 6 months. Never served any jail time, but did serve 6 months. And he was also convicted of grand larceny and served 5 years of probation. Later convicted of possession of cocaine, but as we know, drug crime is not a disenfranchising crime. Mr. Greer currently is living off of disability. He violated his probation with the possession of cocaine, but other than that, he's just trying to live his best life and would like to have the opportunity again to be able to vote. And so I'm happy to yield for any questions before we go to House Bill 4099 from Mr. Mills of Rankin County.
This one is 4086. So just so everyone knows where in the packet to look for the information. Does anyone have any questions for Representative Bell?
Summers.
Sorry.
Did you say Bell?
Well, that's what's on the. I think that-
Gotcha. Gotcha.
All right.
Gotcha.
I think that was a fair mistake.
That's my friend though, so it's okay, no problem.
Representative Summers, sorry to misidentify you. All right, any questions for Representative? Since, okay, any questions or comments before we get to the motion? If not, you're recognized, Senator Thomas, for the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that title is sufficient do pass on 4086.
4086, the motion is title sufficient do pass. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, let's have a show of hands. The chair is in doubt. If you're in favor of the motion title sufficient do pass, please raise your hand. Keep them up so we can count you. 1, 2, 3. All right, if you're opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that fails. All right, Representative Summers, you have another one you want to take up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dustin Darrell Mills, he's right around almost 40 years old, of Rankin County. He was convicted of grand larceny, sentenced to 5 years, and then
4099?
yes, sir. House Bill 4099.
4099, I think it's the next to last one in our packet. Sorry about that. All right, continue, please.
I'm sorry about that too. That's Dustin Darrell Mills of Rankin County. He has been dealing with had been dealing with a very bad drug habit starting at the age of 16, but in 2015 he became sober, really turned his life around. He built a relationship with the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. He's been mentoring troubled youth that faced a similar situation that he was in, and he also helps his church with remodeling homes. And he's almost a public servant, because he's going to door like we do when we're campaigning, but he's going door to door to talk about God and to really bring people into Jesus Christ. So that is Mr. Mills, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Wiggin.
Is understanding what you said he's doing, is he working?
He is working for his church. And I don't know what church it is, but at his church, he's helping with remodeling homes, and he also works with an organization called Jackson Streets, is what I've been told.
That's Mr. Norwood, question.
Motion at proper time, Mr. President.
Mr. DeBoer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I'm looking at his timesheet, and I don't know if you have that in front of you. It says he was convicted of burglary of a non-residential burglary in 2015. And it says he was released ERS in 2020. Is that correct? I don't know. I don't see that in the original bill. Do you know if that's the case with this gentleman?
I do have where he was discharged in 2015. And he was, let's see.
Well, the reason I'm asking is if you look at the bill, it says, it lists out 2 grand larceny convictions at separate different times, and then the burglary would be a third conviction. And I'm just trying to determine whether that is the case or not.
I don't know, Senator.
Thank you.
Other questions? Senator Sparks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Summers. The notice of cause closure in the Circuit Court of Rankin County that Mr. Mills was placed on probation in February of 2013. And generally, after 5 years, as I understand it, you're not supposed to give more than 5 years of PRS. So it was 2020 that this case was closed because they had gone past the expiration date, actually, of his probation, which potentially dovetails into the fact that he would have been potentially released earlier, but still on the books. But I think that answers the 2020 question, is that it was recognized that this case was still active in the circuit court, although they had exceeded the proper cap on probation. And the only question I would have from all that is that last sentence says the court maintains jurisdiction. So even though they closed the case, they're maintaining jurisdiction pending total compliance, which leads me to the question, has the restitution been paid in this case? Is that the total compliance? Because it sounds like he capped out on his 5 years. 2 years later, Hinds County closed the case file, but in the sentence, the last sentence of the closure order said we retain jurisdiction until full compliance. So I'm curious.
As far as I am aware, Senator, he has completed his restitution and any other,
Thank you.
yeah.
Mr. Simmons?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going exactly where Senator Sparks was going, and I was going to say that to me, that explains why we see 2020, because it's probably for a financial reason that he actually did finish within the time in the probation period. But certainly when it was closed in 2020, or what we see as a notation of 2020, to me, that suggests that he now has completed all fines, court costs, and assessments.
And that happens, I think, in a lot of cases.
It does.
Right. Okay. Other questions? All good ones, Senator McCon? Oh,
Yeah, I'm not clear on this because I go look at the stuff here, the DOC timesheet. And we look at 12/1/15, he was revoked. And then you run on down through there and you get to 11, 13 to 17, you got, burglary and non-resident term served, which is what's coming up there. So, explain that a little bit further to me, Senator Sparks. You do a little bit more of this than I do. Or Senator Simmons, I'm not picking up. Well, that's 12, 1 to 15 revoked to TVC because they absconded from supervision.
The a couple things, due to House Bill 585 in 2014, there was a lot of desire not to bring someone who was on parole or probation, particularly, and put them back in MDOC custody for technical violations, which often was non-payment. And then when I don't pay you to the parole officer or probation officer, I don't want to come see you just because I can't pay you, not because I'm doing anything wrong, other than I'm not paying you. Then all of a sudden you're absconded. So you end up in a technical violation center. It's a big difference between that and getting a new crime, which is why, and now I'm on a sidebar, I would love to see if we're going to do more work release or work within DOC, that money goes toward fines and restitution so that when you get out, you're not afraid to go see your probation officer because you don't have the money.
I'm good with that. What
All right.
about 17 notation on that? 13 to 17.
And that is, I think I asked that question the first time because if you go to the right side, it says committed, that's 2015. But you go back to the case, it's 17. So I can't answer that one other than looking at the notice of the case closure order references that he was, let me put it this way, he was sentenced. He came out, he had PRS. I'm assuming, and I have to assume here, that he actually did get violated to go back in on that date and did some time, then came out and the PRS picked back up. But I can't answer that perfectly.
It's just that it's after the time. Of the knowledge. I know we only have 10 minutes. I appreciate any additional.
All right. I do appreciate this committee for your thorough vetting of all of our bills. We do appreciate it so much. All right. I think we're over to Senator Norwood for a motion.
Title sufficient do pass.
The motion is title sufficient do pass. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. All right. Is there anyone else want to leave anybody else, as I've already shown my ignorance of certain identities of House members? Are there any other House members in the crowd that would like to speak on one of their bills? Again, I do extremely apologize and thank you so much for being here so early in the morning with us. Representative Summers, I'll make a note of that, and Senator Representative Sanford. All right, are any committee members would like to look at any of the others that we didn't get to that have maybe additional information gathered since our last meeting or anything like that? Anybody? Okay, if not, for motion, rise and report. Thank you all.